everyone. We're so excited to welcome you here today for the Future Ready Librarian webinar on creating our return to learn plans for our libraries. And we know that this is a hot topic, and so we're excited to have all of you with us today. I'm Shannon McClintock Miller. I am the District Teacher Librarian and Innovation Director at Van Meter Community School in Iowa. I also serve as the Future Ready Librarian spokesperson, so I've got to hear not just the things that go on within our school, but also other schools around the country and around the world. And so it's been really interesting to see what is happening and what it looks like for us going back in the fall. So we're excited to share some of those stories today. You can find me afterwards if you have any questions. I put my email up, and you can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at Shannon M. Miller, and I blog at the Library Voice. I'm excited today to have a few of my friends join me to talk about the things that they're doing too within their school. And you're going to hear from Kim, Liz, Mary, and Martha in just a little bit. And I know you're going to love everything that they have to share. If you have questions today, please post them to Future Ready Lives. This is something that we use on Twitter, and also if you're on Instagram, and of course on our Future Ready Librarian Facebook page too. If you have questions as well, a good place to start is also our Future Ready Librarian page on the Future Ready site, and you can find that at the link below. So just to start, I'm going to share how this conversation started. And in June, Kim put something on the Future Ready Librarian Facebook page about her reopening plan. And it got tons of feedback because we're all wondering as librarians what this is going to look like. And this is something that not just as us going back into our library, but also as schools, as they craft their plans, this is a big question for all of us. And so from that, I reached out to Kim and asked if she wanted to be part of a webinar, and she so graciously said yes and was excited to share her plan. And I put together a Padlet too on that day and asked her if it was okay if I shared her plan, and I shared this with others who in the meantime a lot of people have shared. And all of the guests that we have on today were people who shared on the Padlet, and so I thought by bringing them together and hearing their story, not just about what they went through and what their library looks like and what it's looked like since March, but also what it's going to look like as they return to learn this fall. And so I'm really thankful for them, and also for everyone who has contributed to this Padlet. On this slide, the first one, you'll find a link at the bottom, and everything that we talk about too during the webinar, you'll have access to these slides and to these links, and so you'll be able to get to them too afterwards as well. So to start our day together, we're going to start with Kim because she is the one who shared that great plan, and I can't wait to hear Kimberly's story just about what went on at her school and what they're up to now. And so I'm going to let her take it from here.
Thank you, Shannon, and welcome everybody. Yeah, so this has been kind of a whirlwind situation for me. It all started with a course I was actually taking toward my principal certification, and we had to do a capstone project that was meaningful to our position, our current position. And I thought, man, you know, it would really be great if I could work on a reopening plan. I really wanted to make sure I had a voice and had a seat at the table when people were making decisions, because I certainly didn't want people making decisions for me. So I went ahead and I worked on the reopening plan as my capstone project, and I shared it on Facebook, and it got great response. And one of the people who reached out to me was the president, Kathy Furman of PSLA, and Deb Cockle. She's on the advocacy committee for PSLA. You know, they reached out to me within 24 hours and said, you know, hey, how can we help? So, you know, they talked me through some everyday advocacy things that I could do. They hooked me up with John Kroshka from Every Library, and he met with me and gave me great advice moving forward. So, you know, I just wanted to make sure I was on the reopening committee team for my building. And like I said before, you want to make sure you have a seat at the table, because if you're not at the table, you're probably on the menu. So I just, I wanted to make sure I had all of my ducks in a row and, be prepared with solutions to the problems that I know my district is facing. So I just want to show you my space. I'm looking at it right now, and it actually hurts my heart a little bit to look at it, because usually that space is filled with students and there's papers on the floor and there's robots in the corner. I really miss it. I miss being there, and I can't wait to get back in. So the top panoramic picture is just a wide angle view of my space. I have a lot of flexible seating arrangements. And the bottom two right pictures are of my Fab Lab space. The Fab Lab is an old computer lab that is adjacent to my room. So we turned it into the meeting place for our robotics competition team, and basically our STEM lab. So you might be wondering how I handled the distance learning, because it happened instantly. So we had a meeting on a Friday at 3 p.m. and 15 minutes later, school closed. So school had dismissed, teachers had left, we had absolutely nothing. We were not allowed back in the buildings to get anything. So this was how I interpreted my role. So I continued with instruction, because I really feel that the continuation of instruction is important for the students, of course, and also for administration to see that, we're not just checking in and checking out books, we're providing direct instruction to our students. So this is kind of just the setup that I had. I always included a video for them to watch first, and I just would check in with them, go over the expectations I had for them in meeting their objectives. I always included a read aloud. So of course, when J.K. Rowling gave permission for librarians to read aloud The Sorcerer's Stone, of course I had to do it. And I did all the sound effects, and I had a soundtrack and everything. It was great. You can see Scratch at the bottom, so I always had some sort of computer science tie-in. And on the right, you can see our link over into PebbleGo. Love PebbleGo. And by the way, if you call it a super secret username and password, they'll never forget it, because they think they're totally cool. And then I always try to just tie in something cool. You can see the 360 virtual field trip. So that was from Google Culture, I believe. And of course, my contact information on the right. So here were some of the obstacles that I faced. We had a sudden closure, like I said, hit us out of nowhere. We kind of knew something was going on, but Friday afternoon, everybody was already gone. And because I'm in a pre-K to 3 building, our students were not familiar with Google Classroom, and neither were our teachers. So the platform that we were using for grades 4th through 12th, my school had absolutely no experience with. So we basically had 2 weeks to get our act together. So we had on the fly professional development on using Zoom Formative, which is an online assessment tool, and beginners and intermediate lessons on how to use Google Classroom. And I think that was important, because we needed to streamline our delivery of instruction. So that's like instructional design. So we wanted to make sure we had consistency, especially, put yourselves in the parents' shoes. If they have multiple children in the building, you don't want them having to figure out, 4 different ways of the instruction being delivered to their children. So we wanted to streamline that as much as possible. Another obstacle for us was that our district is kind of one-to-one from grades 3 to 12. However, our 3rd graders do not bring home their Chromebooks. So there we were Friday afternoon, and no one had anything. We did have enough Chromebooks that we were able to get them to parents, and we just kind of did like a curbside concierge service. So they would pull in the bus loop, we would put a Chromebook in their car, and they would drive off. And again, another big issue was equity and access. We are at 42% at or below poverty, and our students did not have money to go out and buy an iPad or a Chromebook. Some of our students didn't have internet access. And I know a lot of internet companies were giving away free access, but some of our families had outstanding bills. So the cable companies wouldn't allow for that service to be reconnected. So we have a partnership with an organization called Families First, and they stepped in and helped pay those debts so that our students could have internet access and catch up, and so we could alleviate that burden for them. And then, of course, the transfer of knowledge. Like, where do I fit in? What role do I play? Everybody is upset and scrambling. And, you know, if this continues, like, what's going to happen to my job? So all of this fear and concern. So I definitely went into reactive mode. Like, how can I help now? How can I serve my families? How can I help my students and my colleagues? So at first, I played a technology support role. I was on the phone with 45 minutes with a grandmother who was trying to learn how to use Google Classroom for her grandson because his parents were essential workers and had to work. So I did anything I could to help my families. And then, of course, I wanted to formulate a reopening plan, which is where all of this came from. And I stuck with a 3-phased plan because that's how Pennsylvania is working. And we're doing red, yellow, and green. So that's why my reopening plan looks like that, because I wanted to use that common language. So here's my advice for you when you're doing your own reopening plans. Make sure you have a position statement that clearly aligns with the vision, mission, and values of your district. And that you should be able to find that easily on your district's website. You want to make sure that your district admin and the decision makers know that you are the subject expert in this field. And this is the time when librarians are needed the most. And you want to explain that you will be that point of success in serving your families. You should read everything you can, reach out to other librarians. And if you're at this webinar, you're already doing that. You want to kind of transfer to a business mindset. You want to identify your liabilities and your assets and look for allies, because as a librarian, I know I'm not the only one in this same situation. I know the art teacher, the phys ed teacher, and the music teacher, you know, we're all in the same boat together. So reach out and identify allies. And then finally, identify the problems that your district admin have to solve and come up with solutions for them. So you want to make yourself as involved in the process as possible. So that's my advice for you moving forward.
Thank you so much. You have so many great ideas, and I just love also seeing your library, and I'm sure the kids miss you so much, so we can't wait to follow what you do with those little ones too throughout the year. So Liz, we're going to let you take it from here.
Thank you very much, Shannon. My name is Liz Dahl. I actually work in the same district as Kim, but I am the librarian at our middle school. Our middle school is a little bit different. We don't have traditional middle school grade levels. We actually start at 4th grade, and then we go up through 8th grade. So I do have a much wider range of student ages that I serve. And during a typical school year, I will see daily classes with my 4th and 5th graders. And then I will also see 8th grade classes as well, where we do a really in-depth research course with them to get them ready for high school level research when they go up to the high school. You can see the pictures of my library at the bottom. I was so excited last school year because after 15 years in this position, I finally was able to redesign my library and get a whole new layout. And unfortunately, I was not able to enjoy it for the entire school year. So I'm really, unfortunately not going to be able to enjoy it next year either, because as you can see, the area where I have comfy seats for students to lay out and read, they're going to be putting study carrels in the library for this coming school year and using the library space as pull-out for small group instruction. So unfortunately, my library will be closed, but I'll still be there. As Kim said, we found out literally at 3 o'clock on Friday, March 13th, that we were not coming back to school on Monday. And I was already halfway out the door. And so not knowing what Monday was going to bring, I didn't take anything special with me. And as she said, we were not allowed back in the building. We were allowed to pull up to the school doors, and they handed us our laptop through the car window, and that was about it. So that was one of our major challenges, in that now I was teaching my 4th and 5th and 8th grade classes from home with only the resources that I could find online. And as Kim said, we did struggle with some equitable Wi-Fi access for our students, and also the troubleshooting of technology issues remotely. I also serve as the technology liaison for our building. So during a typical school day, I'll see half a dozen kids through the library with Chromebook issues where I'm the first line of troubleshooting. So that became infinitely more difficult from home. However, we did have one major advantage over the elementary school. In the middle school, all of our students do have one-to-one Chromebooks, and all of the students do have the option to take their Chromebooks home. So we already had about 70% of our students participating in the take-home program. So the majority of our students did have devices at home with them, and all of our teachers were already familiar with Google Classroom. We already had all of our classes rostered on Google Classroom. So that portion of it made for a very smooth transition. Even so, like a lot of schools, the type of instruction that we were delivering through Google Classroom changed drastically. I know I also started some new Google Classrooms to create virtual book clubs to replace the book clubs that I normally would have been having in school. And it was, challenging, but looking forward to the new school year with all of the changes that are taking place. I won't lie, I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm also thinking very positively, because we can put in a lot of things to help bring those services to students no matter what our environment is. So when I looked at my reopening plan, Kim had shared hers with me probably even before she put it on Facebook, since we worked together. And I immediately said, well, I need to make one of my own. But I approached it slightly differently. I looked at my reopening plan basically as a marketing tool for my library. I looked at it as a way to remind administration and remind all of my fellow teachers what services the library has always offered that maybe they're not constantly thinking about. The principal knows that she needs to find a way for me to teach my classes, but she's not necessarily going to be concerned about all of my other programs, because let's face it, she has enough on her plate already. So I looked at it as a way to remind them what all those services are. So I covered, how would I be offering STEAM challenges? How would I be offering my book clubs? How would I be co-teaching with teachers who are doing research projects? And how would I be getting books to students, both physical books and ebooks? So you can see on the right there, I have some images of the different systems that I've set up to try and help those, or to try and meet those needs in the school.
Okay. Well, and I love also some of these things that you've put in here, things that I've really been focusing on, just using it as a marketing tool. And I think one thing that we need to remember too is that this is a great time for us to really hook teachers that maybe we have had troubles like collaborating with or connecting with, or finding a way to get into their classrooms and work with their kids. And I know that just some of the things that you mentioned And especially on this slide were things that really were successful for me when we were in remote learning. And so it was exciting to think like this is a start for just new relationships and connections too. And so I think these are just really awesome ideas. And like she said, at the bottom, you'll find her full plan there. And so you guys can check that out as well. So now we're going to go to Southern California, and I'm going to let you go over and I'll mute myself and let you take it from here.
Hi, I'm Mary Manny, and there was some more on this slide. I'm not sure where the information went, but however, I'm from Corona, California. There we go. Thank you. I'm the library clerk, so I'm in a kind of different position than a lot of you out there, whereas I'm not a credentialed teacher. I'm more considered a clerical staff. Our school district has, oh gosh, over 30 schools, at least 50,000 students. We have one teacher librarian that's like our head, and we have another teacher librarian that she just started. And then there's us, and we're in our libraries. It's just me there, and I make the decisions what's going on there. So my school is Woodrow Wilson Elementary, and there's a picture of the school. We're nestled in some nice hills. It's just a beautiful site to work at when I'm physically there. We did have close to 900 students. We're kind of dropped down to 733 with the virtual learning and things. We were scheduled to go back, but then they switched to, it's going to be total remote learning till at least mid-September. And we are an accelerated reader school where the kids are constantly in the library getting books, exchanging books. You can see in the upper picture there, all the students in my library. That was a typical morning before school. I would have as much as 60 students in there and working on homework, exchanging books, just hanging out. That was their kick-it spot. So it's sad for them to have lost that. And one fun fact about Woodrow Wilson Elementary, as you can guess, it was named after President Woodrow Wilson. And my grandfather was a second cousin to President Woodrow Wilson. So I'm actually working at the school that was named after my ancestor. So just like before, our school closed March 13th, and we had just finished Read Across America. You can see the picture there, one of our dress-up days, and that was one of the last days I had a whole class in the library, as there was different things going on at that time. And even prior to March, as I was watching how COVID was moving and things, I had already started disinfecting my library each day and wiping things down and just trying to keep things as clean as possible, cleaning the books more often. And then March 13th came, Friday the 13th. And it just had this weird vibe to it. And that was the week before we were due to go on spring break. And I thought, you know what, I think today I'm gonna bring the library fish home, because it's just, something could happen and I'm not sure. And so I had the fish ready to go and a few more things I had put in a rolly cart. But lo and behold, right after lunch, we got the email that we're going to be closing for 3 weeks. So a week early and then spring break, and they thought that we would be back. So after school, I pulled up my car to the library doors and I piled as much as I could in there and things to keep me busy for the next 3 weeks. And you can see the picture of my desk there. I brought home a lot of books that needed to be cataloged and fixed and things, with every expectation on going back after 3 weeks. But before those 3 weeks were up, we found out, nope, we're out for the rest of the school year. So then it came time to, well, how am I gonna help support my teachers and my school? And thanks to Future Ready Librarians, I became introduced to this thing called Padlet. And I set one up and put videos on there of me reading stories so the kids could still hear stories. I had resources to links, to ebooks and different things. And then something else new to learn. I had to learn how to Zoom. And the Zoom started with like staff meetings and things, but then I reached out to the teachers and I'm like, if you would still like to have a library story time, I'm willing to join you at your Zoom time. Just let me know. And so I had several teachers that were very excited to have me do that. And then moving on, it was getting kind of close to what would have been the end of our school year. And I was looking at all the things that hadn't got done in the library and things that we normally would have done for a closing out the library. And, you know, we hadn't even collected textbooks and library books and things, a lot of which, most of our textbooks were still in the student desks. They hadn't gone home because no one expected they would need them. So I emailed our head of human resources and I explained to her, you know, some of the things that librarians usually do to close out the year and how I know there's a lot of books that are on campus that I could check in. And I asked her, is there any way I can return to work? And I told her I would even do it on my own time. I so wanted to get, you know, the library finalized and closed up and stuff. And it turned out that all the librarians in our district, we were allowed to go back for that final month. And so we were able to close out our libraries. I got mine ready for fall. It's already decorated. We collected textbooks and things. And I was able to quarantine them, clean them, get them put away. But as most of you, we have 25 textbooks out and 363 library books out. And hopefully at some point, some of those will come back. We will see. Next slide, please. So then moving on to the new school year. And I was watching on, you know, our Future Ready Librarians site and people concerned about their jobs and are their libraries going to be closed? Are they going to get laid off? And, you know, I was really concerned. And one thing that I really want to urge and emphasize is right now you need to be proactive and come up with ideas. Because especially in the libraries, a lot of people, they don't have a clear understanding what goes on in the libraries. And not knowing what goes on and how we can work around it and things, it's kind of easy for them to say, oh, we can't have the library open. There's too many risks, there's this and that. So that's why it's important to be very proactive. Right now, a lot of us are virtual, so offer how you can help either in person or virtually. Right now, even though my school will be on remote learning, I will be able to work from the library. So that's going to be good if, you know, say a teacher wants to come in and get some books to help with a unit she's teaching on, she'll be able to do that. And plus I'll be able to do some Zoom read alouds right from the library in different places, and I'll have access to all my books. Just recently, I sent out a form with time slots that I'd be available to join class Zooms, and I tried to align it with their teaching times. And several teachers have signed up for times that they would like me to come on every week and read to their classes. Also make a Padlet of stories and send that out. You can put your links in there, videos. They're really, really useful. You can put messages. One thing I saw a lot of our teachers doing was they had to make the Google Classrooms, and unsure whether I would be able to use Zoom to read to the kids or what I would need to do. I created a Google Classroom as well, and so I'm also putting links in there. And I just very recently, last week to be exact, I went on YouTube and I looked at some tutorials, how to do a Bitmoji room and how to even make a Bitmoji. And I have one of those, which I'll show you soon. And it has links to a lot of cool things that will help. Now, for those that will be returning to campus and are looking for a way to make your library work and make it work to where students can actually come in, or to some extent, the first thing I would advise is mentally go through your normal library day and what usually happens, and how would you address each of those things to make the library safe. So for me, in the morning, what usually happens is up to 60 kids are coming in. Well, unfortunately, that wouldn't be able to happen. The library would have to be closed for those first 20 minutes of the day, and I would use that time for, you know, cleaning books, putting books away, or whatever. Also look at how the library schedule can be tweaked to allow extra time for cleaning books and the areas, as we will need that extra time for wiping down books, sanitizing things, cleaning computers, whatever it is that fits in with your day. So looking at my typical day, the first thing I thought of, well, after that crowded time before school, was when a class comes in, well, of course, they're going to need hand sanitizer. So I thought a station at the door. And then either I or the teacher could just give each student a squirt. They rub it on their hands. And for the littles, I plan on trying to teach them that when they're in the library walking around, to act like they are surgeons. And you know how surgeons will walk around with their hands up, kind of, so that they're not touching things. And so that would be a kind of reminder to try not to touch, as little touching as possible. And when they come in, I'll have sit spots, which, if you're not familiar with sit spots, they're in the picture there with the arrows, and you can get them plain. They're kind of like big Velcro circles. They stick to your carpet, and you can pull them up and they don't damage the carpet. So I'm going to have my sit spots about 6 feet apart, as they're supposed to be. And looking at my library, I may have to switch. Instead of me on the stage reading to the kids, I may have to sit somewhere else where I can really spread out enough of those sit spots for the size of the class that comes in. Another thing I looked at is the students would use the shelf markers, you know, as a placeholder when they pull out a book. Well, something like that that's going to be touched by multiple students, of course, we can't have the shelf markers. So my plan with that is, if, say, a student pulls out a book and really changes their mind, I do not force a student to get a book that they don't want. So if they happen to pull out a book and they really change their mind, so they could bring the book up to me, and I'll wipe it down before putting it back. Another change that I'm going to have to make, which is heartbreaking, is no students behind the counter helping. And I have so many helpers, and some of them actually do help. Some of them, they just want to be there. And unfortunately, I won't be able to have that. My scanner, it has a stand that it can sit in, so that the scanner is not being touched even by me. I would type in the student's number, or if they don't want to tell me their number out loud, I could type in their name. I even have cards that I can scan. And so I would be at the computer. I get them put in, and if they're checking out a book, so I tell them when, and they'll hold their book under the scanner light. And I know a lot of the kids are going to love doing that, because that's something they didn't normally do. If they're coming in and exchanging a book, usually during our AR exchange times, they'll come up to me with their old book that they want to return and their new book that they're getting. So then I would, using that process, I would check in their old book. It would go in a bin, and then from the bin, either wiped down and quarantined, or quarantined first and then put on and then wiped down. I don't know when disinfecting wipes are going to become available, or if we're going to have to try to use sprays. I do have a supply of it, one thing I have done is if a book has already quarantined, then it's technically it's good to go, but I like to make sure the books are clean. I've used baby wipes, provided the book has been quarantined. All right, so I thought I would end with a fun slide. This is my Bitmoji library that I've been working on, and I keep adding things, and sometimes we'll take one plant out and put another one, and different links that I think of. And this will be an ever-changing thing throughout the year as holidays come up or different things. And eventually I plan on using more than one slide. So you see there, I have 2 links for Corona Public Library. Eventually, Corona Public Library may have its own slide where I can put more links about the different things going on there and different services that they have. I have, if you can see that little blue book on the shelf, that's a link for the students to look up AR and information on their books. I put my Padlet where the globe is, and so they can go there and hear stories. So it's just a lot of fun things that you can do there. And like I said, I just went to YouTube and watched some tutorials. I watched one through the whole time, and then I played it again, and I actually did the steps as they were doing it, and I would pause it, and I was able to figure it out. And I want to leave you with, be a problem solver. It's very important that they look at us as the resource, as the saying goes, when in doubt, go to the library. So we are problem solvers. And we, right now, more than ever, it's important for us to be proactive. Now is the time to show what you can do and how you can help. My library proposal that I come up with, I had emailed it, of course, to my administrator, our school board, and just in talking, I happened to show it to my union president. And she, in turn, talked to our HR director about it and our head of the safety committee. And I found out just yesterday that they plan on implementing my ideas for our libraries across the school district. So you never know when you jump in and say you have an idea, you have a solution, you just never know how far that can carry. And that's it. So thank you so much for listening to my part.
Yeah, thank you, Mary. You have so many great ideas, and so we really appreciate you sharing. And I love your Bitmoji scene. It's so cute. So now we're going to hear from Martha.
Well, hi, everyone. My name is Martha Bongiorno, and I am a media and education technology instructor in Fulton County Schools, which is in Atlanta, Georgia. A media and education technology instructor is a really fancy term that they call school library media specialist in our county. My contact information is there. What sets me apart, I think, from this group is the lens that I look through. I'm a middle school media specialist, yes, but I'm also the president-elect of the Georgia Library Media Association. And so when we were faced with remote learning in the spring, a lot of our organization were an army of volunteers, and we kind of all just went reclusive because, you know, as an army of volunteers and we all have full-time jobs, we threw ourselves into our work. And I'm sure many of you are in the same boat where, you know, you were a tech help 24/7, you were trying to get devices to kids, you were trying to figure out internet access, you were trying to figure out food for your kids. I mean, there's so much that went into spring remote learning. And so over the summer, Georgia Library Media Association came together. Our board of directors really focused on how we can support our state. So as I tell you about my story, it's not only from my perspective as a middle school media specialist, but also from our organization standpoint as well. So this is just a look at our school library in Johns Creek, Georgia. And so on the left-hand side, what I love the most about our library is it's a community hub. Our students are in there 24/7. We are a one-to-one iPad school. So every single one of our middle schoolers, 6th through 8th grade, has an iPad. And so that, I know we are very lucky and fortunate to have every middle school and high school in our county has one-to-one. It just depends what device your school has chosen. And so in addition to that, I not only take care of the books and order books and take care of clubs and things like that, but I'm also in charge of our instructional technology for our school of 1,400 students and 140 staff members. And so on the left-hand side, you can see it's always busy. In homeroom, we could have upwards of 150 kids in there. I mean, we could do band practice. We have open mic mornings. We have Skype visits, you know, book tastings, all the things. And so March 13th, that's a day that will live in infamy, right? You know, we're all talking about this date. And honestly, the week leading up to that Friday, I was not going to be shocked that we were going to remote learning. I'd heard tidbits here and there. We're a very large county. So I don't think we were being caught unawares. And then luckily, we had a professional development day on the 13th. So I worked with some of our tech experts within our school building, and we built some PD for March 13th to prepare our teachers just in case we were to move to remote learning. So luckily, we were able to prepare our teachers enough to do online classes, how this would work synchronously, asynchronously, make sure every single one of our students had devices. I mean, we are one-to-one iPads, but you know, students break things go wonky and things like that. So I needed to make sure that every single student had access. What we ended up finding was, even in our area, which tends to be a little bit better off in terms of financials, we were still seeing equitable access and being denied to some of our students because they didn't have access to the internet and reliant Wi-Fi, and even with some of our teachers as well. So I think even though we were better off than some, we were still facing some of the main issues that we've seen all across the country. All right, so we got out on March 13th, and Monday, our superintendent said he expected us to jump right in and have lessons ready to go. So that was super fun for us. It was very intimidating, but I'm really proud of our staff. I'm proud of our county for rising to the occasion. One of the main things that I did, honestly, for the first 2-3 weeks of what we called Teleschool, was having open office hours. I mentioned I was in charge of our instructional technology feature, which also means that I'm in charge of fixing a lot of things. So I did have open office hours where students could connect with me on Microsoft Teams. We're in Microsoft County. And so I would be on phone calls, I'd be on team meetings with our teachers, with students, with whole classes, just trying to fix some of the technology issues. Once those things started settling down, it was really nice to see everybody starting to troubleshoot and take ownership of that piece. So we were able to move on to other things that could almost mimic that community hub that we were missing. One of the biggest things that I miss about being in person is feeling like you're connected with each other, seeing faces. You know, the library was the place where the kids would come, like and I know everybody's mentioned that so far. It's the hub of the school, it's the heart of the school. And without that, it was just feeling very isolated and sad. So what I tried to do is bring that online. So I started that with lunchtime. Our students eat in the library for lunch. We have 25 lunch passes we give out in the mornings on a daily basis, and try to, you know, make sure that everybody gets a little piece of time to eat in there at some point. So we ended up doing trivia and just hang out time during lunch. I did this by setting up a Microsoft team for our Library Learning Commons. And so all the students that joined that group, I just invited to a chat channel meeting. And we did things like May the 4th be with you trivia. We did Harry Potter trivia, Marvel trivia. And sometimes we just hung out and talked about books and things like that. We would have guest speakers come in and talk during that time as well. And it was just really a time to connect and have fun with one another. Another thing I did is use Microsoft Forms to offer personalized book recommendations. To be honest, with working with our PLCs, our professional learning communities, with teachers, trying to collaborate and get resources for them, offering professional development, I did not have time to do personal physical book checkout. And at that time, it was still kind of an unknown and a scary thing to try to offer that to 1,400 students. So what I ended up doing instead is using this Microsoft form. Students completed this, and then I would curate a book list using Wakelet, and I would link each book based on the genres that they liked, movies that they've liked or not liked, to any of our Sora Overdrive ebooks and audiobooks. If they told me that they didn't want to read ebooks or audiobooks, I linked to our public library to check them out, or I linked to local bookstores like Little Shop of Stories and things like that, where they could order the physical book to their house. So this was really fun for the students. It gave them some personal attention to be seen, and it gave me some really great time to get to know our students on a deeper level and offer that reader's advisory. I know Shannon in a little bit is going to talk about her version of this, and I just think this is a great way to connect with your kids. I'm sure many of us have done this, is that virtual field trip. If you have heard about Amanda Jones, she did this every Friday, I think, live with her students. Again, I just didn't have the time to dedicate that because I was being pulled for so many other things. But I did do Wanderlust Wednesdays, and it was a self-paced version of virtual field trips. So we focused on our world language teachers and what they needed. So our school serves, we do Latin, Spanish, French, and a little bit of Chinese. And so we did some really fun Wednesdays where they would see the sites. I use Google Arts and Culture, and then I would link to STEM or makerspace activities that you could do at home and some book recommendations. We worried about our staff wellness as well, so social emotional learning with our staff. So we hosted staff game parties, and that was really fun. We did charades, and we did Cards Against Humanity, which was an after hours thing. We hosted Coffee EDU virtually. And then we also, I led a MEDI, or school librarian professional development ed camp for Metro Atlanta to try to support other media specialists in supporting their schools. And then last but not least, a lot of us, what we did was virtual book clubs. Ours, we used Sora Sweet Reads because it was free for every single student. I did not have to worry about copyright issues at that point. And it was really great connecting on books that also had some social justice themes. And it was just a really great way to connect. So I collaborated with our neighboring middle school, and our students connected with one another, and we invited some authors to talk about the books that we were reading. So this is just one example with Dusty Bowling and the Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus, which was great. All right, Shannon. All right, so like I mentioned, I feel pretty confident that I did the best that I could in the spring. Yes, there was room for improvement. There's always room for improvement, especially being thrust into it at the last minute, and even with the amount of time that we had to get ready, a week, I still feel like there's so much that we can improve on. But after talking with members from the Georgia Library and Media Association and just other school librarians as a whole, I was just feeling very defeated, because it was sad to see advocacy kind of thrown out the window for a lot of counties. We were being treated as help desks, and that is our job, to support our learning community. But now that we know better and we are able to support better, It's really great to go back to some of the standards that can guide and advocate for our position. So one of the things I'm worried about most with budget cuts and things like that, and I know that Mary had mentioned this, is where are our jobs going to be in a year? So GLMA at the head with Holly Freelo, who is our president of GLMA, we worked on a translation of practice. So we used the school librarian evaluation instrument in Georgia to guide our practice. It's 10 standards, much like TEKS or things like that. And we translated that to how does this look in a digital learning environment? And we gave specific examples of what this looks like in person and what this would look like online. And so all that is linked here for you with this link down at the bottom. The other thing that we did was create a crosswalk between the SLEI, the School Librarian Evaluation Instrument, and two frameworks that we often use, which is the Future Ready Librarians framework and the ISTE standards for educators, for you to plan your goals and to advocate for what you can do moving forward with your school opening plan. So my plan of action moving forward, our county has just come out and said that we're 100% virtual instruction for the foreseeable future. I don't see us going back anytime soon with the way that Atlanta, Georgia's numbers are rising. So I am going to continue doing what we did in the spring, what worked, but I'm also going to add in that translation of practice, and I'm really going to try to focus on collaborating with teachers and bringing myself into their classrooms to support more one-on-one with our teachers. I'm going to try to offer more connection time. So our students loved our lunchtime connections. I'm hoping to open up our own version of Coffee EDU and try to do like breakfast with our students and things like that to try to connect. When we're talking about social emotional learning, that is key moving forward. We have rising sixth graders that have not been given devices, so I'm going to have to find 500 iPads to give them and roll that out before August 17th start date. Another thing I'm going to work on is I have a students working to advance technology team, which are amazing students who are really great at technology. They are my go-to gurus. And instead of me manning our virtual office hours 24/7, we're going to set up time frames for my SWAT team. So that will empower them to help their peers and also help alleviate some of the issues that I was having in the spring. And then the last thing that I want to focus on too is requesting physical books. And I think that's a good leeway into what Shannon was going to talk about. So thank you.
Thank you so much, friend. I can't even wait to dig into the things that you've put together. So I really appreciate you sharing all of that with us. And, you know, at our school, one thing that is a really big thing that we focus on is just how we're going to continue doing the things that we love most, and that's getting books and literacy and just different tools and technology into the hands of our kids. And so I wanted to share just a couple ideas why we wrap up things that we have been doing just to play off of all the great ideas that all of our other guests had. And one thing that we're going to do is I took a spin on Grubhub and called it Book Hub, where we'll do the shopping for the kids and forms that they are going to fill out. These are for our little ones especially, and I work with preschool to 12th grade, and so we had to think about all of our readers and them coming to the library, not just to find books that maybe they want to read, but being able to search in a safe way because they won't be coming to the library when we start back to school, and then having us deliver them to them in a cute way. And because our kids will be staying in their classroom, we also wanted to make sure that these things were available for them within their classroom that they could scan or they could see and get excited about. And so putting posters in each one of their rooms too. But also building that place that we have for our kids online is so important. And we've already heard great ideas, but really being able to like go into our Destiny Discover and make it a place where our kids can find things, not only books, but resources that we have. And really, emphasizing like the ebooks and audiobooks we have right now is so important, but being able to even have them connect to Book Hub in a creative way. And so if it's for little ones or even our older ones where they're going to fill out a form to be able to have us shop and then for us to be able to deliver some of those books. And so in these slides, I've put all the resources that you need, and you can use all of these, make changes for your community, and just giving you something that you'll have to take with you too when you go back to school, or even if it's virtual. We also got a new book cart, and our book cart will be our library on wheels. And so we wanted to make it a fun place that we could do a little marketing and advertising for our library. And so buying some just magnetic letters and making some posters, having bookmarks, having a horn, of course. And we know that this is going to be visiting all the classrooms. And so we wanted it to be really fun for the kids to make these little Book Hub deliveries. I also put together something that we're calling Destiny Flicks. And over the years, we've seen people put spins on Netflix. And this is one that will direct the kids. We have, I think, close to like 10,000 or more ebooks in our collection, and it's a lot of ebooks. And so I wanted to pull some out and feature them. And so we're using this Destiny Flicks for the kids to be able to connect to some that are either new, or maybe they're like trending books, or ones that tie into award books or a certain topic around the year. And then one last thing we're going to do, and I'll show you in the next slide where I want some input from all of you too, is we're going to be doing some virtual pop-in story times. And because we're not going to be able to have the kids come to the library, one of our return to learn plans is how are we still going to see the kids? And so we're going to have live a couple of times, maybe even 3 times a day, where Mrs. Hockenberry, my library associate, and I, another special guest, are going to be reading to our kids. And so from this, when I shared this, I thought this would be something really great for all of us to be able to do together. And so in this form, you can click on it, and the link is also at the bottom. And let's figure out how we can, start connecting our kids. And I know now that other authors and illustrators and even publishers have responded to this on our Future Ready Librarian Facebook page. And so please go here and give some feedback, and then just be on the lookout for how we're going to make this happen. But just kind of leaving you with some ideas on, when we think about returning to learn, how we can really make it fun, not just for our kids, but for us too. And I think it's our time really to shine as librarians, and we can make a huge, huge difference in what's going to happen in the next school year. So I'm going to leave you with just a few important things. One is the link to the website that you can find all of the information around Future Ready and Future Ready Librarians. One of the new things on there is our conversation starter, and you can find that. There's a link in the slide that you can take this, and it's a great time to have a tool like this to be able to have conversations with your administrators and leaders within your school. And so you can do this too on your own and walk through this with your administrators. And I love it because it's step by step on everything that we need to do just to make things happen. We also have a Future Ready Librarian collection that has lots of great resources, and a Padlet as well that is broken down within each one of the wedges. And so you can take a look at that to find more resources, especially when it's tying into maybe a certain emphasis, that if it's curation or empowering your kids as creators or leading from the library, you can find those tools that you need as well. You have heard a lot of talk today about our Future Ready Librarian Facebook page, and if you haven't joined, please do, because it is the best place to be able to just have conversations and find new ideas. And I think just the community that we have built on here, especially in the last few months, is something that is so important to me, and I really appreciate everyone, the things that they have to share, and just how we come together to be able to help and support each other. So we would love to have you on there too. If you're on Twitter and Instagram, please look for Future Ready Lives and use that in the tweets and the things that you share. And as always, using just TL Chat too, that's been around for a long time. The conversation on there is so great. And, you know, like anytime we're talking about Future Ready, just following also what others are doing, if it's our administrators, our teachers, our technology people, and following Future Ready is something that is so important. If it's on Twitter or our Facebook pages, and seeing the things that everybody is putting out there right now, if it's the podcast series that Tom Murray has done, or Brianne Hodges, Carl Hooker, I've been watching his, and they have been so great. But things to bring back to our school, to be able to have these conversations with others in our building, is so important, especially right now. We're actually going to kick off our podcast series. It's coming in August, and so keep a lookout for that. And I really just appreciate everybody and all the things that you had to share today. It was so awesome to hear how you're returning to learn, and just to have these resources that we can all use. And so again, please let us know if you have questions, reach out, share on these hashtags, and we really just appreciate everything that you shared today, special guest. And I know that you're going to have lots of new questions, but we really appreciate everything that you brought to the table today. So have a great start of your year, however you're returning to learn, and we will see you soon on the next webinar. So thank you so much.